Sahiti, can you hear me? Sahiti?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, it's audible. Ma'am, it's audible, madam.
Okay, ma'am. Ramlingeshwar Rao, sir, good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Sir, just we will wait for a minute, sir.
No problem. Take your time. I'm okay. Madam, mine is 90 minutes, kada?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In between any breaks, or just we can continue like that?
Break means students.
No. Okay, no problem. It's only I have 3
Just
presentations.
1 minute break we will take, sir.
No. That's not the question. Only thing is I have 3 presentations, so there is always a break. I will change one after the other. That's why I'm telling you.
Okay. Okay, Sahiti, let us start our session.
Okay.
Okay. Good morning, respected faculty, respected resource person, and dear participants. Welcome to day 6 short-term certificate course on regulatory affairs. Today we are having a resource person, Mr. Y. Ramlingeshwar Rao, sir. Sir has received MPharm Pharma Chemistry and is a winner of Professor S. Rangaswamy Gold Medal in Pharmaceutical Chemistry. And Sir has designed and set up 1 lakh SFT state-of-art lab spaces, including handling highly potent solid dosage forms. And Sir has received CSR Award for Engagement in 2016 and received Global Award for Simplification of Imports in 2017 and Above and Beyond Platinum Award GB Expansion Project in 2018 and has had a recognition from People Change Management Unpaused Inclusive Collaborative Affiliation in 2019. And Sir has worked in various roles in research and development cell with various organizations like Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Nepal Pharmaceuticals, Natco Pharma Limited, Channel Pharmaceuticals Manufacturing Limited. And Sir has a vast experience in formulation, research and development cell. With this brief introduction, I'd like to invite Ramlingeshwar Sir to start the session.
Good morning, all. At the outset, I would like to thank the management, the principal sir, Professor Padnam sir, Madam Convener, Dr. Jyoti Madam, and Saiti for the anchoring. And just I would like to start my this presentation. Actually, I have 3 phases. I will take you through 3 phases. Can you see my screen? Hello?
Not yet, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. I have to share my screen, correct? So please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are able to see, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you for confirmation. So today I will be talking three phases. One is the drug discovery and development. Then we briefly touch upon the INDA, NDA, and ANDA. And then finally we go to the inspection regulations and compliance. So let us just start with the drug development and what you call discovery and development. See, basically we know this as a research and development, but in industry now it is called as a drug discovery and development. Usually when they say development, it relates to the formulation research and development, and discovery means when we invent a new drug and molecules. So in this presentation, as I told, I will have three parts. In the first part, we talk of the introduction, then we talk of drug discovery, drug development, and how we commercialization. So I have to close this side panel. How to do that one? I have to reduce. Okay, got it. So. So as I told, the drug discovery, it's more into that. Then we know that we have some therapeutic efficiency, everything. That we first step is identifying therapeutic efficacy and pharmacology effects. That means when we do the initial discovery, everything we do the preliminary studies and ensure that what is its toxicity and whether it has any pharmacology. That is called the drug discovery. And the next step is the drug development. Because we can't take the drug directly, probably we have to develop into a type of formulation, which is easy, patient-friendly and everything. And final stage, but not the least, is the commercialization. That means it's available in the market for all the patients. Okay. And now let us see the concept to the commercialization. See, there are two ways whether the company itself does in-house or they can be outsourced. That means there are partners who have the capability to develop the drug or discover the drug or develop the drug. That way we can collaborate with them. And sometimes what happens is the flow, what you see at the bottom, it may happen parallelly or sometimes it may extend further while the other activity is going, previous activity can be continued. As you can see, the discovery part includes the first, the therapeutic concept. First, the concept is developed where we say that the drug has some, based on the earlier experience on the structural, we can say that this may have a possibility of a therapeutic activity. And then we go for a target selection, then target validation, then load finding, and then lead finding, and then lead optimization, then preclinical development, clinical development, regulatory approval, and then the product. As you can see that the discovery phase covers from the target selection to lead optimization, and the development stage comes on the preclinical and clinical. That is when we go into the formulation, and the commercialization comes post approval of the regulatory approvals. And if you can see that we can go there at that stage, which is the drug regulation. So concept of commercial, what happens is we do the development activities, that is a preclinical study, that is a discovery phase, then it becomes the IND, then we go to the clinical, then it will become the NDA, new drug applications. Then finally, once it is commercialized, then we have the generic drugs, that is abbreviated new drug applications. Sometimes what happens is we call it the life cycle management. That means if the drug is indicated for one activity, subsequently what happens, there are better drugs which come to the market. And obviously, this drug has less value. Because so much efforts have gone into identifying the toxic effects of the drug. Only thing we have to do, we need not go in very deep. Probably we can see the other indications. I can give an example of minoxidil. Minoxidil is originally developed as an antihypertensive drug. Actually, it's a periphery vasodilator. But subsequently, you know that there are other drugs which come like beta blockers and calcium channel blockers and everything. This drug value has become less. So what the organization has done, they developed into a hair growing. Probably minoxidil is available in the market where it is used for the growing of the hair because it improves the circulation, thereby it facilitates the growing of the hair. So this is one example actually. So what happens is, this is another reason why happen is, these lead compounds, whatever we identify only one lead, but subsequently we also keep the other leads, means their prospective leads. And subsequently, when this lead, when it fails in some other clinical trials, we try to see what other lead can be developed. So that what happens is, the initial efforts for identifying the therapeutic category will be substantiated. So now we come to therapeutic concept selection. So in this one, I will go to the next step. So what are the questions that comes into the company's mind when they want to go for a therapeutic concept? One is, should the company do it? Strategy, whether it has any market value or is there any benefits, all these things. Because when you come to the strategy, you can see that whether it is unmet conditions or the market is good or the pipeline's opportunity and government is favorable for that. So you get some concessions on that one. Could the company do scientific and technical capabilities? As I told, you can either develop in-house or you can use the outsource activities. So this is the next question comes, whether I have the talent to do that one. So that is what you mean with scientific and technical capability. You can see that pattern landscape and freedom to operate. That means scientific opportunities, strength of hypothesis, whether we have the targets. See, targets will come to the next point, because even if we know the drug also, we should have some targets where it can be tested. That is what we mean by targets. And even if the targets, we know whether the activity is there, we have to have developed the assays, and we should have some animal models, and we should have a chemical starting points. And development challenges like formulation, routes of administration, you know, the BCS classification come into picture, then toxicology, clinical development, regulatory hurdles, and production. So these are the competitive landscape. And finally, the last is, but not the least, is the operational constraints. That staff and expertise, facilities, and the findings. So these are findings actually, because as you know, a new drug to come into the market, it takes 10 to 12 years, and it may cost $2 to $3 billion. Okay, as you can see that we usually, when the earliest drug discovery, we start with around 10,000 compounds, but when we come to the clinical phase, the compound may be reduced to 250. That means when you go for optimization and final selection of this one, you can see the compound is reduced to 250, and when going to the clinical phase, it remains 5. As you can see, a lot of efforts goes. So if you consider the success rate, it's very minimal. That's why it takes more time. And finally, it comes to the regulatory approval. As you can see that this is the flowchart for the drug discovery. As you can see, first we have chosen the project, then the choice of starting point, whether it's a biological entity or chemical entity. That means the approach will be different. As you can see, whether it is available compound, available in the library, or it's a new compound. Then first step is the screening of the libraries. That means we check what are the likely compounds which have a similar structure, which has already proven some therapy. All these things we identify here. And when it comes to the biological concept, what happens is, even though you find a chemical entity, you should also have some knowledge on the receptors and other things, because these have to go and interact with the receptors to produce the required pharmacological effect. So first we have to identify the target, then we have to validate the target. In the sense, when you deal with the validation, just like any analytical or formulation process validation, we have to identify whether we have to find the characteristics of the target, and we have to validate that it matches always. And then we have to select a target. That means once the target is validated, that is the selected target, then the assay development. That means when these chemical goes in, logs into the target, how do you assess how much quantity of drug is interacting with the target and how much is the therapeutic effect? So you should develop some sort of a measuring method. That is called assay development. For that one, then we do the screening of assays. So when we develop the assay development, then we try to see whether it is working on the compounds. Then is the HTS. This is the high throughput screening. That means what happens is, when you have 100 to 200 lead compounds, we scan them only we check whether it has activity or not. That means it's more of a qualitative, because it's very difficult to test each one quantitatively. Then once it is done, then we take the primary hits. That means which has the most, shows the most activity, whether it is a less quantity or whatever is there. Then we go on the secondary assays. That means we fine tune the assays, then we confirm the hits, then we check the receptor logging and the activity, then the lead is identified. Then lead identified, what happens is, we have to go for a lead optimization. That means sometimes whatever. Hello? Hello? Can you go on the silent mode, please? And once the lead identity and then finally it comes to the once the lead is approved, then comes the drug candidate. That means that is the prospective candidate which will go into the pre-initial testing and everything. So as I told, the high throughput screening, then so whatever I explained, it is just another thing. So we start with 10 to the power of 20, and then we come with very less actually. Then comes the development compound registration. What are the various steps comes there? First, the technical part where we do the chemical development. That means that we call it the new chemical entity, new molecular entity, or the drug substance. So we study the stability of the drug substance as such. Then we optimize and scale up the synthesis and purification, because that is also important. Produce GMP batches for clinical testing. So that is a technique. They call it as a technical batches, which are basically non-GMP. So they establish the process. Then they want to do, they will follow the GMP rules for synthesis in every steps. Then what happens is this whatever the data is called is a drug master file. That means a dossier is prepared, a drug master file is prepared, and is submitted to the regulatory authorities after doing the preclinical studies. So whatever the GMP batches they've done, they will do the preclinical toxicology studies on the animals. And then the data with the preclinical, non-clinical, that is mean the process synthesis, everything will be submitted as a drug master file. The drug master we have to, one is the open and in the closed form. The open form gives complete details of all the synthesis process and everything, and the closed form gives only the high level steps. So usually whenever you purchase a drug, usually they give the closed form. Once we have agreement, everything, only the open form will be disclosed. So once that is approved, then it is called the investigational new drug. So what happens till then, it is called a new chemical entity, new molecular entity, because till then the pharmacology entity is not established. So we don't say it's as a drug. And so that's when we started saying as a drug substance or the new investigational new product. Afterwards, what happens? We go into the formulation development, where we choose the different formulation, we do the testing, then develop the formulation, do the stability studies. Then we go for the phase 1, 2, 3, 4 clinical studies. As you know, that phase 1 is about the toxicology, PK/PD parameters. Phase 2, we go for a bit of safety, and phase 3 is the dose optimization, everything. And that is the final stage where we establish on more healthier volunteers, saying that the drug is working properly. And then subsequently, what happens in phase 4 is the post-market surveillance, because what happens because we are doing a few clinical trial studies with few volunteers. Once it goes in the market, there may be some adverse effects which has to be monitored, and if required, we have to do subsequent studies or modify our formulation. And coming to the investigational part, as I told, it's the drug metabolism and pharmacokinetic studies. We do the DMPK studies, and then we develop the analytical methods, and we study the related substance impurities we do. Then what happens is we do the safety studies. That means safety pharmacology, in vitro toxicology, and in vivo toxicology. Then, as I told, clinical development, phase 1, assessment of PK and side effects. Phase 2, dose finding and best of efficacy. And dose 3 is definitely, we give the exact dose which we want to put it in the market. Then it goes for the registration. So this is just whatever I discussed. So technical development, so this is more to the solving the technical related synthesis and formulation. Then investigation studies, it's to do with the safety and efficacy. Administrative function is more to do with the what happens is, it's not only that we do the study, there is a testing. So a lot of coordination goes with the quality assurance, communication, all these things go. So there will be a team who will be coordinating with the regulatory authorities, collecting data. There are various departments like quality control, quality assurance, regulatory affairs, formulation development. All these people put together, and the ECTD, there are 5 modules. In the module 3, we have the development reports, everything. So the technical will support, and it is collected and submitted as a dossier. Okay. So when it comes to the pharmaceutical development, usually we will call it as a 2 studies. One is the pre-formulation study. That is, initially we do the feasibility study. That means basically when you want to make a formulation, it's not only drug. We have to selection of excipient, selection of process, selection of equipment, all these things comes. And basically we study on the physical chemical properties of the drug substance, its solubility, you know, the BCS classification we have to do. So permeability, solubility we have to study, and dissolution rates, acidity, alkalinity, and then lithophilicity, particle morphology, melting point, fracture behavior, all these things comes under pre-formulation studies. And next is the formulation studies, where you know that major thing is how the visibility of the product. See, when you develop in a small equipment, but when you go for, you have to do a scale-up optimization, because when you go for high-speed machine like compression machine, everything in the manufacturing, there are a lot of parameters, because dwell time is very important. That means the flow should be proper. All these parameters will be substantially adjusted in the scale-up optimization. Then we go for a standardization, where we standardize the process, identify the critical parameters and acceptance criteria. Then we do the process validation. Then it goes into the commercialization. Then it is commercial batches are made. So as I informed, so the clinical study is very expensive. It costs 2 to 3 billion, and it will take nearly 12 years. That's why, see, when developing a new drug, that's why discovery is always expensive. It takes a lot of time. That's why you see a lot of companies develop the generic drugs, which you know that it's available after the patent expires. So it is readily available. Technology is readily available. So they replicate this one and they produce the drugs at a lesser rate. So there are very few companies who carry out the discovery. So rest of the companies just follow on the generic drug development. So this is a brief touch on the clinical phase. Phase 1, it's more to the safety assessment. It is done in the healthy volunteers, data collected with adverse events, PK parameters and PD parameters. Similarly, phase 2 is early exploratory and dose finding studies, where adverse event, PK parameters and preliminary evidence of efficacy, proof of concept we do, and confirmation of clinical dose and regimen. So as you know that the regimen is nothing but the frequency of administration of dose. You know the half-life of the drug, so obviously you have to determine when you have to give the second done, so that the range is maintained between the therapeutic range of the drug. And phase 3 is the large-scale studies in patients, and we have to reassure the safety and efficacy. And the last one, but not the least, is post-marketing safety monitoring of patients. As I mentioned, we monitor the patient after the post-marketing also to see if there is any adverse effect which needs to be addressed. So in order to see, these are all going to a patient who is in need. So there are a lot of regulations and there are a lot of regulatory bodies. So these are the regulatory bodies, and because there are different, there are organizations like ICH. In this one, regulatory regulations across Europe, United States, and Japan are harmonized, because it's very difficult to follow the rules independently for each country. So this ICH harmonization, because most of the countries, they accept on if you follow these guidelines. So it is not that we have to follow the ICH, but only thing is whatever we follow, but it should comply with these guidelines actually. And as you know, the ethical framework defined code, there is a declaration of Helsinki 2000. This is required for the principal investigate to protect life, health, privacy, and dignity of the patients. You know that a lot of confidentiality information which is being shared, database for the patients, everything, and we take a consent form. So obviously the data can be revealed to the public. That is what the principal investigator take. That is what the declaration of Helsinki. That is protection of the private data. And the regulatory authorities, they develop the guidelines, how to develop the product, everything. They do the monitoring, they do the control, and the all idea is to maintain the safety and efficacy claims of the market drugs. See, as you know, sometimes the adverse reaction doesn't surface immediately, but after some years, few years afterwards, you know, you have heard a number of times there is a side effects, adverse events, and there is a recall of drugs and everything. So these are the things which the regulatory body closely monitor and ensure the patient gets the right drug with the right quality. And they also, if they find the quality is not meeting, they will just withdraw the drug. And also the regulatory professional are interface. What happens is our regulatory professional in our organization, because they are the front face for the meeting with the regulatory affairs. So they take all the information from the manufacturing unit, and then they will work as an interface to submit the dossier, everything to the regulatory authorities for the approval. So next step is the milestone and decision points. See, how do you take a decision whether to move forward or back? As I told, the cost of the clinical studies cost to $2 to $3 million. So obviously, organization will be very cautious. So whether to move forward or backward. So they have at different phases, different what you call milestone and decision points. So we'll just have a look at. So you can see the different decision points. We'll just go through one. So early selection point. That means this is the time when the clinical studies means in addition to take drug candidate molecule will be early preclinical development. That means at least you know the terrific once you hit and other studies are done, lead optimization, lead is selected, then they will take a decision whether we have to go for a preclinical studies. Then comes the decision to develop in man. That means once we establish that the drug is passes the toxicology studies, got the information, then you have the investigation new drug. Then we take a decision whether we want to develop that one or we can outsource that one to somebody else who will do the clinical studies. That is about the drug development in humans. You can see these are all clinical grade material and this is manufactured at a highly GMP one. Then the full development decision point. This point is reached after phase 1, phase 2 studies have been completed. That means we have complete knowledge of the toxicology, safety, and efficacy of the drug. We know the dose range, we know the dose regimen, everything. Then we will take a decision whether we want to go for the final stage. That is the third phase 3 studies. And submission decision. This is the final point when a decision is taken to apply for a decision based on the data collected and its quality. That means what happens is it's not only we develop the product everything, but ultimately the intended purpose should be matched. The data should match the intended purpose, either quality wise as well as also the clinical and efficacy and safety wise also. That is what the submission decision point. That means this is where the regulatory people will go and submit to the regulatory authorities for the approval of the drug. So in a conclusion, we can say that so it is not just like any other mechanical developing a car. It has a certain uncertainty because we are testing on a human. It's not that like a car, which is a mechanical thing. If there is some defect, we can also rectify. Because we are testing on human beings, there is a lot of uncertainty and outcome is rarely assured. You know that a lot of clinical studies we start, as you can see the market, we start with 10,000. There is only 5 of them get into the market. The reason being they can stop at any phase of the clinical studies. Thank you. If there are any questions, or I can go to the next this one, ma'am. Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello, sir.
Madam, can I go to the next presentation?
Yes, sir, please. So students are requested to post their doubts if they have in the chat box, or
Sorry?
you can unmute yourself and ask directly. So at the end of the session, those will be discussed.
I didn't understand, ma'am.
Students are requested to post their doubts in the chat box if they have.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. Okay, fine.
At the
Okay.
end of the session, those will be clarified.
Okay, sure. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now I will go to the next topic. So far we have talked more on the development and discovery part. Now we go into what do you mean by INDA, NDA, and ANDA. So INDA stands for the investigation new drug. As I told once, the drug is we know that the lead compound identified and toxicology preclinical studies. We are sure that it has the required therapeutic efficacy and pharmacological activity. Then what happens is we just move this one and we submit the dossier, as I told, drug master files, where we give the complete synthesis and everything, and we submit the toxicology, non-toxical studies, everything. Then we get the investigational drug. So once we get the investigational new drug application is approved, then we can plan for the new drug application, submit the new drug application, then carry out the clinical studies. Once the data, everything is sufficient, we submit the dossier, then we get the new drug applications. Then once the new drug application is there, then some people will get an exclusivity patent for 180 days. Once the patent expires, then the other people can use the data and everything. They can develop a drug. Then they can, that is called the abbreviated new drug application, because already this one is they do the BAB studies, the bioavailability bioequivalence studies. That means they don't need to do all the 4 phases. They only do the phase 3. They compare the different listed drug, which is nothing other than that is the approved drug. And they say whether it is relative viability, whether it has the same viability as that one, and then the drug is approved, but they will be selling on the generic name. So let us just try to go through the what are the different contents of the INDA and NDAs. So in the topic, I will cover the introduction, then INDA, NDA, and ANDA process. So what happens is we call it as a subject law. Federal law is common for everything. See, each country has its own law, like USFDA has USFDA, MHRA, so NISA. So many regulatory authorities each country has, but they are all common. Like, as you know, the good manufacturing practice, GMP, we call it. So each one called different, but most of them are similar. So before they submit a marketing application, they have to inspect the facilities. They will see inspection of facility will come at the later stage of this one. They will approve the facility as well as they approve the product. That means they will check the process. They will check what are the equipment used. They will check what are the analytical method developed. How they will check how the people who have developed, whether they are trained. They check all the activity studies. They check, and everything they do it. Then only they go for the market application. And usually what happens is they call it a sponsor. Sponsor is nothing but it can be either the drug discovery itself, or it can be somebody else who has bought the discovery drug. They want to do the clinical study, that is called a sponsor. So they want to see why we want this new drug is.
Sorry to disturb you.
So, madam.
Sir, you have not changed the slides, sir. It is showing slide only.
I'm sharing. It's not visible?
Yes, sir. It is not visible. It is showing Cantor slide only.
Okay. Just I'll go back.
Sorry.
Now can you see, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Now it is visible.
So what happens is, because it's a legal obligation, we are studying on human. So there is a legal, if something goes wrong, the FDA can come and take a legal action. That's why IND, the Investigational New Drug application, is submitted for them to get a approval to do the clinical investigations and other things. That's what it means by IND. Okay? That means you have finished your drug, means the new molecule entry synthesis, you have done the clinical pre-clinical studies. So all this data you have to submit as an IND application, and then once the FDA approves, then what happens is then we can go for the clinical studies. So as I told, it's the abbreviation of Investigational New Drug, which is approval for clinical research of new drugs. So as you can see, the production of new drugs require 2 administrative approvals. One is the clinical phase IND application, other is the completion of clinical or ND application. So we are in the first stage where we have completed the preclinical studies. So we have the IND application. And as I told, clinical research refers to the tested and after animal testing. It is divided into phase 1, 2, 3 clinical trials. And as you can see, the initial studies are on lesser strength. Phase 3 is on more strength. And as you know, phase 4 is the post-clinical studies. And you can see the sequence. So where it shows how the process flows actually. And usually IND application for USFDA, it gets cleared in 30 days. But when it comes to India, it takes more time. Probably it takes to 4 to 5 months. So you know that the rules is regulated by the Schedule Y of the Drugs and Costs for 1940-41. And for the USFDA, it is 21 CFR 312.3. So CFR means Code of Federal Regulations. So the regulatory authorities there, it is given a different codes, and 21 CFR pertains to the pharma industry. So that is referred as a new drug or biological drug that is used in the clinical investigation. As you can take that for IND application, the sponsor will wait for 30 days. So
If he doesn't get any response, queries or anything, it is considered that it is approved and they can go ahead. Okay. And you can do so they say that if you are retained during clinic, the data furnished FDA indicate the IP to be toxic under the criteria of benefit risk ratio, the FDA can terminate the clinical studies. Because this benefit risk ratio, they always check. That means more adverse reaction or serial adverse reaction. So they will be doing a lot of pharmacovigilance there. Okay. And if you see for India, it is the rule 122DA, and you can see it falls under the Drugs and Cosmetic Acts. And it is filed, the application should be in Form 44. And you can see that appendix, and it takes 7 to 9 months. Probably I told less. Or even ethical committee. You know that there is an Indian investigational ethical committee. Because this committee will evaluate whether we are taking the required number of human trials. What happens is when the number of humans are more, automatically you know that even if few fails, still it will pass. That's why they will limit the number of human trials. They will study the protocol, everything, and they will approve, and then only you will be able to do the clinical studies. They call it as the Indian Ethical Committee or Indian Review Board. And in that one, Investigational Review Board, in that one, there are different people, one common teacher, lawyer, a doctor, so many people are there. The committee, there is a system of which is developed and scheduled. Why? If you see the global guideline, it is the OECD guidelines actually. Okay. And if you want to import samples for the studies, probably you have to go for the import license, which is in the Form 11 and other things you have to get for import the drugs. So what are the contents of a IND? A table of introductory statement and general investigation plan. As I told, it's like a protocol. What we call it, when you want to do some study, we have a protocol. That means we define how we are going to do the study, how many animals we are going to use, what is the process, what is the drug frequency administration, what is the what you call washout period. All these things will come into picture, and how many samples you draw, how much is the sample you are drawing, from where you take the samples, who are the people who will be doing, principal investigator will be a doctor, all these things come in. An investigator brochure is nothing but it uses both the toxicology and the clinical, non-clinical data for information. And then the chemistry manufacturing control information is nothing but, as I told, the drug synthesis process and other parameters. And pharmacology, toxicology information, these are all we come from the preclinical toxicology studies, previous human experience with IP. If you have done some preliminary studies, or if it is done by somebody else from the literature, and any additional information. As you can suppose you have submitted, it can be returned, it can be withdrawn. For in such a case, a 10-year sponsor is done an effective IND. That means if they find that they have an IND, but subsequently due to some reason they want to withdraw because all clinical studies ended, because they found that some toxic effect they can't continue, they can cancel that investigation new drug. Because what happens is, you know that the process is different for different. So chemical synthesis is different for the same drug. Sometimes the toxicology may happen. So what happens is they may want to go back and modify the chemical synthesis so the toxicology can be reduced. Then whatever the investigational new drug they have obtained may not be valid because the process has changed. Okay. Probably, I don't know whether you know, there are guidelines for the formulation, super guidelines and the type variations. These involve that there is a small change in already we have developed a process. There is a small change in the equipment or anything, then we can do minimum studies. That means we can do the in vitro dissolution studies. There is type A, B, C we have. So we level A, B, C. So accordingly, we can do and submit the data and get the approval and get a new FDA approved. Okay. So usually, as I told that they will FDA role in development begins sponsor having screened the new molecule pharmacology and acute toxic potential in animals, and they want to test in diagnostic therapeutic potential in humans. So what happens is at that time they will check everything. That means investigation. FDA will come for an inspection. They will check the facilities. They will check all the data. They will check all the process equipment, what is used, facility, whether it is suitable for the drug and everything. And whatever they have submitted in the dossier, they will check the raw data. That means when you do the validation, usually submit the final data. That means this is the report, this is the quantity. But there are a lot of calculation which is done. All these things they will check whether the data translated is correctly or there is a data integrity. Data integrity is nothing but there is some change in the data. It can be intentional, non-intentional, which is not acceptable. And you can, as you can see, there is a investigator. There are 3-4 types of INDs. One is the investigator IND. So it is submitted by a physician who both initiate and conducts an investigative trial. That means he has all the data, he has the experience to conduct a trial, and he submits the application. Emergency IND, just like the COVID situation, where that we can't wait for the 10 years or 9 years for the vaccine to be available. At that time, we get an emergency IND. So this usually happens on the cancer oncology products, where the patient is very critical. At that time, we can do some new medicine which is under process of clinical studies, because it is potential for the patient. They may take an emergency use IND and they can do it. Treatment IND, that means expanded IND. That is already you have submitted some experimental drugs, but you see that what is called serious and life-threatening conditions while clinical trial is conducted. Then they will request FDA to give some additional expanded access in INDs so that they can do some more toxical studies and they can submit the data. So as I told, there are INDs can be commercial INDs where the company has been marketed for a new product. Non-commercial INDs only for the non-commercial research. That means by a physician who both initiates and who also administers dispense the IP. That means a physician might submit a research IND proposed studying an unapproved drug or approved drug for new indications or new patient populations. So it is intended for research purpose. That means it is very preliminary studies. That is, they don't want to do completely on the populations. Only they want to do a very limited population. And these other two we already discussed. So as I studied what are the contents of the IND application, that is toxicology, pharmacology studies, and of course manufacturing information, that stability control used for manufacturing, and clinical protocol, investigator information. That means you should submit the protocols and IEC, IRB approvals. All these things will come under the IND application. Next comes the NDA. That means once you know that IND has been approved, then the same drug can be used for the development of the formulations. That is called the new drug applications. That means once you develop the formulation, you complete the conduct clinical studies, you see that the formulation parameters are okay, the drug is stable, your expiry date is established, then your clinical status shows the pharmacological efficacy and the therapeutic efficacy, then you know the safety and range, you know the regimen, everything. All these data they will submit as a NDA application. Then we prepare the prerequisite for NDA application, it already should be a IND. You should do the clinical trials with the IND, investigation new drug approved drugs. And as you can see, what are the different classification of the new drugs. You can see the new molecular entity, or if you have a new sort of previously approved drug. Suppose I have a amlodipine bisalate. So tomorrow I develop a sulfate. Then it is considered as a new drug application. Even though we change the salt, but still it is considered a new drug because there may be some toxic effect because of the salt. And new formulation of purely formulated. That means if today I have a tablet formulation, tomorrow I want to do an injection, then it is called a new drug. New combination of two or more drugs. It is like you have the amlodipine with the hydrochlorothiazide, combination drugs and everything. The one is a diuretic, another is a hypertensive drugs. All these things come under the new combination. Or already marketed drug product. That means even the already marketed drug product you want to do. That means then you have to have a new drug application. Duplication, that is new method. As I told that maybe the source of this for developing drug product can be a API source. Today you are using A, tomorrow you want to change to B because A is not able to supply to you. Then it is considered a new manufacturer because the drug substance manufacturing process is different from the earlier manufacturer. So the IND will be different and you have to do the ND application. Next is new indication. That means, as I told, given an example of minoxidil, initially it was done as an anti-hypertensive drug. Now tomorrow I want to go for a hair booster or something. Then we have to use the new indication. So we have to do an NDA. So already market drug, no previous approved NDA. That means if already drug is in the market, but there is no approved NDA, then we have to go for NDA. So these are the situations where the NDA classification drugs for the NDA application is done. So as I told, it is a 122E that is the means rule for the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, where we do the DCA, which is already approved. And usually, as I told, it may take up to 4 years from the approval as a new drug for a period of 4 years. That means even though in India it is approved, but till 4 years it treats as a new drug. So what happens is when it is a new drug, then if I want to import the same drug which is approved in abroad, then we have to take a no objection certificate from the CDSCO. Then only I will be able to do the test license and other things. Okay. Abbreviated new drug. As I told, the abbreviated new drug is once already the new drug is approved and available in the market. That means usually when a new drug is approved, people take a patent that will take the exclusivity of 180 days. So accordingly, what happens once that 180 days is completed, you will be allowed to sell this drug as a generic drug. So there are different paras which I will show you where we can get the ANDA applications. And is governed by the bioequivalence base. So this is Waxman-Hatch Act. As per Waxman-Hatch Act, we can do only the bioequivalence studies. There is no need for doing the clinical studies. That means we are saving the 3 phases. So in the clinical studies, the references can be any other drug or placebo, whatever is there, because we have to do PKP, pharmacodynamic, everything. But we had already drug is established. All we have to do is only the relative bioavailability. That is, we compare the bioavailability with the reference drug, and then we get the data. And once it is compatible in vitro by the dissolution parameters, and then we compare with the in vivo studies. So what happened is these are the requirements, that is brief into new drug, chemical formula information, animal pharmacotoxicology information, expert clinical trial information, bioavailability, dissolution stability data, regulatory standard in other countries, applicant test license, marketing. All this information should be submitted as an NDA application. So as you can say that we can see that in short, IND will declare the authorities for clinical trials, NDA will report the authorities for drug registration and marketing. ANDA application refers to application registration marketing of generic drugs. So as you can see the difference now. So the abbreviation usually IND, NDA, all these things will be used. So this is in brief the different process. So if you come to the content of the AND application, you can see that these are the different regulatory 21 CFR 314, that is for application for FDA approval, market new drug or antibiotic drug, 21 CFR 320 for the bioavailability bioequivalence requirements, and 21 C10 for the new drugs. So these are the office of the generic drug. These are the government agencies which will give the approval actually. And what are the contents? So here you can see application form, basis for ANDA submission, conditions of use of active ingredients, route of administration, dosage form strength, bioavailability bioequivalence data, labeling chemistry, manufacturing control samples, patent certification, financials have been a disclosure statement, other information. So let us just see on the patent certification. Next step will be patent. As I told, patent certification is as I told, NDA has a patent exclusivity. That means it has 180 days exclusivity. During this period, we can't launch the drug. So what happens is we have to see when you submit the ANDA, we have to see what are the conditions. With para 1 certification means that the patent has not been submitted to FDA. That means the information not available with the FDA. Para 2 means the patent has expired. That means para 2 means we can freely launch. Para 3 means the patent will expire on date of marketing. Para 4 certification, the patent is invalid and will not be infringed by manufacture, use or sale of generic drug. So usually people go for para 3. That is a challenge patent we call it. That means you can submit the application while the patent exclusivity is there, but you can get an approval. But one thing is you can only launch after the patent expires. So what are the terms of exclusivity? As you can see, orphan drugs, it is 7 years, new chemical 5 years, pediatric exclusivity 6 months, and additional patent challenge is 180 days. Okay. And innovative 180-day exclusive period in which no other ANDA for the drug can be approved. So this is the 180 days where what only if you want to challenge before you want to launch it before that one, then you have to go for the para 3. That means challenge patent, where you challenge that my process is different, my product is different, my particle size is different. Then you challenge whatever the patent, then it will be accepted. So that's all about the INDA and ANDA. I will just go to the next phase of my presentation. Actually, we talk about the regulatory compliance part, actually. I hope you can all see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we talk of the regulatory authorities and compliance to regulatory inspection, because this is a very important aspect. As I told, once we submit the INDA, NDR, ANDA, if you are submitting the first time, see, definitely the regulatory authorities will come because they want to ensure that your facility, whatever you have given, that means when you submit the dossier, you have to give the site master plan, you layouts, what are the list of equipments, all these method specification, everything. So they want to ensure that whatever you have defined in your dossier are available there, so that you have used the right equipment, whatever you defined for manufacturing of this product. So obviously what happens is, so that is where the regulatory authorities and compliance to the regulatory inspection. It's not only that once they inspect and give the this one, there are different types of inspection. One is the first time, then surveillance inspection. All these things we will discuss further as we go forward. So why the regulatory authorities and our nation? See, it is like, so just like what we have in this. So we drive, we know we have a license. Just driving a car, just imagine driving a car. We have the license, everything. But we have the police department, because to ensure the traffic control, ensure we properly drive, we don't exceed the speed limit, we follow the road rules, everything. So just like that, regulatory authorities, our nation also regulate. It's a check. That means even though we have internal QA and regulatory authorities who do a check on our this one, but still there is a third party requirement, because the drugs are exported to a different country. Suppose we export to the US. So US regulation and administration are totally different from the Indian regulation. Of course, we have adopted some of them and we have some most of them similar, but still, because it's going to a patient who is in a different country, obviously it is necessary that somebody ensures that whatever the drug comes into the country meets all the quality, safety, and efficacy and purity, which is for the internet use and patient safety. So that is why the regulatory authorities in our nation has formed. So obviously they want to see that effective regulation to ensure safety, efficacy, quality of the drugs, and also accuracy and appropriateness of drug information available to the public. I don't know how many of you read the instruction given: store in Schedule H, store protect from moisture, store in a cool, dry place. All this label information is very important. And also, you know that investigational brochure or the leaflets will be available about the adverse reaction. Sometimes they say that, you know, the doctor will say that you take this drug before food, after food, because there are things like the antibiotics, some other things. If there is a fatty food, the absorption will be different. You know that during the clinical studies, there are two types of studies. One is the fed condition and the fasting conditions. That means the drug behavior will be different. As you know that based on the environment it needs to going. So when in fasting condition, the drug may be absorbed faster because there is no, the only drug goes into the stomach, it directly goes. But when in the fed condition, they deliberately fed with a high fatty food. What happens is how the absorption in presence of the high fatty food. All these studies has to be established. That is what we mean by the accurate and appropriate drug information. And what the regulatory body is, they produce them, what are the strategic and tactical and operational direction and support for working within the regulation. And this will help. When you have a system, that means you know now there are a lot of apps have come. So earlier we used to call 139 for railways to check whether the train has come on time or not. Now there are a lot of apps. The GPS has come. So technology has improved, where in your mobile itself, you can check whether the train is coming on time, where it's coming, all these things. Similarly, here also regulatory authorities are given a guideline. They are given a, if you have to strictly follow that guidelines, process everything, then what happens is at least you are assured yourself that you have greater chances of getting it approved. So this will help you to deliver a safe and effective healthcare products. Means whatever the product comes in the market, because it is going to a patient who is in need of them, and it's a life you are talking. It can be tomorrow your kith and kin, your daughter, your grandparents, everything. So it's obvious that we follow the strict rules as per the GMP norms and conditions. And what is the scope of it? They act as a guardian. So as I told, they will help to safety, efficacy, and quality of the drugs. And they will also identify the strength and weakness of the drug regulation to propose strategy to improve drug regulation. That means what happens is, if you see the conditions, if you see the drug regulations abroad, they are more stringent than the drug regulation. Japanese regulation is very stringent. To get an approval in Japan is very, very tough compared to the US FDA or European authorities. If you have seen the regulatory audits, even the people who their attitude, everything also matters. The regulators who come from US FDA, sometimes even there is a slight deviation in the process. If you are able to justify why you are deviating everything, they are ready to accept it and they are give it approval. But if you consider people from the European side, they are very conservative. They will check the rule. If the rule is followed, yes. If the rule is deviated, they won't give it up. So this is very important that we understand the guidelines. Always guidelines, it is very vague. You have to follow, develop your own SOPs and everything that we discuss subsequently, so that the people who are working in your organization, they will understand much simpler. So that what happens is it is easy to go further. What happens is it is easy to go and meet the regulatory requirements. And also they play a vital role to ensure and increase regulatory implementation in non-regulated parts of the world for safety of the people and residing there. Sometimes what happens is, that some of the vegetables, they are only grown in the northern India. They are not available in the southern India. So obviously we have to get it from there. Similarly, globally also, because India is very economical, people like to buy medicines from here. But having said, when you say the medicine is cheap, it doesn't mean the quality is not there. We have to ensure the quality is up to the standard, but because of the economic condition, the same quality we are able to deliver at a much less price. That means there is a win-win situation. And also, as I told, the last but not the least is regulated, means pharmaceutical regulation related to drug product registration, manufacturing, distribution, price control, marketing, research development, and intellectual property protection. As you know, the patent has become very popular because you take so much pain. You take 10 years, you spend $2-3 billions of dollars, you develop a product, then you should have a IP protection. This is one of the reasons why most of the companies from abroad, they don't come to India, because our IP protection is very weak. That means this confidentiality of invention, data and everything, it's very weak in India. That's why most of the companies, if they want to come, they check on the data integrity, other things. They are more stringent when they audit the Indian facilities. So what are the challenges? So the challenges are the promote public health and protect the public from harmful and dubious drugs. There is a mislabeling of drugs. There are spurious drugs. Everything comes into the public. But one thing is how you bring the awareness to the drug. See, even though we are educated, we are pharmacists, how many times we believe on the pharmacist? Even the doctor he says this product is not available, I'll give an alternative drug. But how sure are you that the drug has the same quality as the drug doctor has given the prescription? So all these things, unless you are aware of these things, then they will be exposed to the harmful and dubious drugs. And also to assure proper legalization covering all products with a medical claim and all relevant pharmaceutical activities, whether carried out by public or private sector. So legal is always there. If you see the legal system in the US, everything is very strict. Tomorrow something happens, if the patient sues the company may have to pay large amounts of money to come down. So what happens is, for whatever they are doing, they should have a proper legal document. Suppose what it means is, today you are driving a vehicle, so you should have a license, you should have insurance, you should have a RC book and everything. Similarly, to carrying out this one, you should have proper agreement with the third party. You should have the license to manufacture from the local government, because even though we do the activities here, we have to take the license from the CITESCO and other companies. And to increase global regulatory growth to ensure safety of products. That means what happens? Harmonization. As I told, harmonization means we are all equal. That means whether you manufacture in India or you manufacture in US or UK, the quality or standard should be the same. That means the product what you are giving, it should give the same efficacy and safety than the other products which are manufactured elsewhere. That is where the regulator trying to harmonize the things. That's where the ICH and other organizations are come into picture. So the need of so focus areas are, even though we assure that independently each organization try to maintain the safety, quality, efficacy, but we should have a more centralized procedure in drug regulations. What happens is tomorrow I want to export to US, I have to follow the USP pharmacopoeia. If I have to export to Europe, I have to follow European pharmacopoeia, Japan pharmacopoeia. So it becomes very difficult. So we should have a simple regulation so that what happens is wherever we go, automatically, if you manufacture for one country, it will meet the requirements of the other countries. The only difference is because, as you know, there is some difference in the human population. Because of the biological system, there is a difference. That's why some of the clinical studies we do in certain areas, it may not be valid in certain other things because of the biological difference between the people. You know, sickle cell anemia, it is more prominent in Africa because they are more prone for the disease. So their biological system is prone for this activity. So these are the things which they are trying to see how we can centralize the process, harmonization of the regulatory norms. That means when I prepare a dossier, I shouldn't prepare for US separately. I shouldn't prepare for Europe separately. So whatever dossier submit to US, that data should be sufficient to get an approval in the other countries also. Strengthening the regulatory authorities. You know, at one time when the US FDA used to come, they used to come from US for auditing the Indians. Now the Indian pharma industry has grown so much that they have a dedicated office in Delhi. They have a dedicated audit. A lot of Indian auditors are coming. They have an advantage because psychology of the people, culture of the people, if they are local, they know the culture, they know the psychology. It always helps them to provide the quality. They know where the things can grow. So that way it's an advantage where we try to. That's why quality should be built in every step. The safety efficacy should be built in every step. That is how the quality and the safety efficacy will come. It's not that at the end of the product you get the safety or efficacy. So if you see few more details, the regulatory authority is an autonomous enforcing body. That means they have their own rules. They have their own governance. So there is no influence from the government or anything. So they have the regulations to ensure the public and health safety. And they are responsible for reviewing, approving, regulating medical products, including pharmaceutical drugs and medical devices. You know, there are drug products which are available, which are not yet pharmacopoeia approved. That means we say that paracetamol tablet, USP paracetamol, some of the drugs are still not approved in the pharmacopoeia. See, all these medical devices is another area where it is growing like anything. So even medical device regulation is also part of this regulatory authorities. So they are known as regulatory bodies, regulatory authorities, or simply regulators. And as we discussed, the guardians, that means guardians are to support you. It's not that they are trying to pinpoint you. They will point out. They are your partners. They will help you in developing, improving the quality, safety, and efficacy. And they say that the rules and regulations also ethical behavior guidelines outlined with local and international. Ethical behavior outlines. What do you mean ethical behavior? When you do the clinical studies, as I told, there is a IEC, investigational ethical committee or investigational review board. So it contains different people, common man, like a teacher, a lawyer. There is a 9-10 people who are from different sections of life. So they understand whether we are deliberately doing for more number of human studies, or they always say that human beings are guinea pigs. Like that, unnecessarily we are doing more. That's what they're trying to reduce the number of healthy volunteers, everything. The protocol, everything will be reviewed. So the governing body ensures that all staff, including technician, pharmacy, chemist, labor, are qualified. That means they should be qualified and trained for the intended purpose. Suppose you are driving a vehicle. The license is an indication that you have gone through the test and you are eligible to do the driving. You may know driving, but unless you are not authorized to drive. Similarly, here also, all these people are trying to how to handle the equipment. The equipment should be qualified, calibrated. You should have knowledge on the method development, validation, the SOPs, all these documentation, good documentation practices, good manufacturing, everything you should be aware. The next step is already we discussed, and so roles of regulator, as we told, so each country they are responsible for the rules and regulation. So as you can learn, pharmaceutical care are considered the most highly regulated industries worldwide because of the deepest impact on people's lives and could cause most potential harm. Because if people are not there, what if the country has wealth or equipment, everything, who will drive? There is no point in that one. And also that's why the healthcare is become very important. As you can know that the life of a person is now extended. Earlier, people, if they get some disease, everything, people won't have any medicine to, but there are a lot of technology has improved. That is because of the proper regulation, authority, and the quality of the treatments and everything. As I told, in India, it is the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. So we call it and it is head by the DCGI, Drug Control General of India, and it is the head office is located in the Delhi, and we have a zonal office. It is there in Hyderabad. These are the countries, CDSCO, which gives approval for the clinical studies and everything. But we have the state FDA, State Food and Administration. They will give the test license for doing the formulation development, everything. So the majority of that, so whenever you want to send the product to WHO inspection, World Health Organization, to countries, then it is a joint inspection by the CDSCO and this one. So all the license like import license, NOCs, clinical trial approvals, protocols approval, everything is done by the CDSCO. As you can see, approval of new drugs, clinical trials, import registration, licensing, license approval for blood banks, vaccines, medical devices, testing of new drugs, banning of drugs and cosmetics, all these things. DPCO, direct price control orders, all these things is done by the CDSCO. These are the major drug regulatory orders. There are many, but one thing is these are the very prominent ones. You can see the USA, it is called the Food and Drug Administration. UK, it's called the Medicinal Healthcare Product Regulatory Authority, the MHRA. Australia, it is the TGA, Therapeutic Good Administration. India, it is the Central Drug Standard Control Organization. And Canada, it is called the Health Canada. Europe, it's the European Medicine Agency. And South Africa, it's called Medicine Control Council. Uganda, it's Uganda National Council for Science and Technology. Brazil, it is called Agência Nacional. So it is in Brazil language. It is simply called as ANVISA. And then Japan, it is called the PMDA. So these are the pioneer regulatory authorities which will come and inspect you, give the facilities approval for the GMP status. As you know, the GMP is the good manufacturing practices. So each country has its own guidelines. You know, in India, we call it the Schedule M. Recently, there is a upgradation of the Schedule M. So it is more stringent now. Similarly, US FDA has a guidance for the inspection. And there is an annexure for the Eurolax guidelines for the Europe. So like that, each country has its own guidelines, which is very clearly states what are the rules and regulations, what are the expectations. All these things are given there. And there are international organizations, as it is World Health Organization, Geneva. These are all neutral organizations which try to harmonize the principles across the countries. And the Pan American Health Organization, World Trade Organization, International Council for ICH, and World Intellectual Property. So these are the international organizations which try to protect the public from the private and the private from the public. That means if you follow the guidelines or rules kept by them, then automatically what happens is you will have more authority to market your products. And as you know, now we will go into the GMP regulation we have studied. Now we go into the inspections. As you know that when you say the GMP, so there are certain parameters which comes into. One is the site and facility management and the quality management system. We have the quality risk assessment. Then we have the management committee, trained personnel, quality product. These are the 6 pillars of the GMP where is focused during the GMP inspection. So when you say now coming to the regulatory compliance. So when you say the compliance, today we have talked, earlier we have talked of regulatory bodies, what are the regulations, everything. Now, how do you comply? So these are the following regulations with the authority rules. They like include the FDA. All I told, these are some of the agencies. And they talk of what are the various aspects of the regulations they follow. One is the pharmaceutical product life cycle. That means whether as I told, life cycle management, that means the product life. That means after 10 years, probably it may not have more side effects or the effect may not be effective because you know the tolerance, we call it the tolerance. That means people get a tolerance. That means you get habituated, so you don't get an impact on that one. So even you take more drug also, it is not having any impact. Then you have to change the drugs. And research and development, clinical trials, manufacturing, everything is there. So regulatory compliance is not a legal obligation, but also a competitive advantage for a pharmaceutical manufacturer. Like you know that whenever you go, it's a common, even for the special use of ISO certified. So people when they say ISO certified, it has a good improvement. You see ISI mark when you go on to find some products like what you call mixie or fridge or anything, you see the ISI standard. We call it the ISI standard. So it has some value. That means when you have this standard, then what happens is people see it as some sort of a quality, and people will prefer to use your products. So what is the advantage by adherence to compliance? One is you can gain the trust and credibility. You know, there are certain brands like Godrej or Prestige, Cooker, all these things, they have gained some based on the performance. That means if you are in the market for so many years, so when I taking your drug, it is effective. That means it is not giving any side effects, or I get what the intended. Suppose I have some malaria, I take your company's drug, then it is cured immediately. So that way you gain the trust and credibility. And also the formula avoid and reduce the risk of product recall, lawsuits, fines, sanctions, penal damage. As you know, the GMP facility's main is to prevent cross-contamination and other the mix-ups. When you say cross-contamination, what I mean is you have used the same equipment for manufacturing product A. When you want to manufacture product B, you have to ensure that there are no remains or residuals from the product A goes into the product B. To happen that one, whatever you do a lot of cleaning, you do the cleaning validation, everything product changeover. See, there are two types of changeover which you do. Changeover A and changeover B. A means that means you produce one product, one batch, then you go for the second batch. Then there is no deep cleaning. That means you remove all the previous product batch number, everything, you clean surface, everything, then go for the next batch. But when it goes to the product cleaning, because the previous product may contaminate the next product, there may be drug-drug interaction or there may be side effects. We go for a deep cleaning. That means we ensure we clean and then we take the swab or rinse samples and ensure that the quantity of previous product less than 10 ppm. That is the limit which people accept it. So that situation, everything comes here. So this will ensure that there is no product contamination. Similarly, mix-up. When you say mix-up, you have seen a lot of cases where you see that a mix-up. That means instead of one strength, there is another strength goes. The labeling is very important. So sometimes what happens is the bottle is same. Now the things have improved. They are changing some color band or something, but it's the identity. So if it becomes mixed up, what happens if wrong labeling? Then one person who has no BP can take the BP, so his BP can go low. Then he may die. All these things come into picture. And regulatory company is complex, and it's a dynamic process. It is not static. Every day the regulations changes. So the constant monitoring, updating, and improvement. See, earlier pollution control never used to be for the vehicle. Nowadays, you should have a pollution control, all these things. Now, MBALET has come where all documents are available on the system. So all these things you have to constantly update. That means we are trying to see if you can minimize the innovation. Suppose you are using an analytical equipment, HPLC, everything. So what happens if you use a software? How do you know whether you have manipulated the software? So there is an audit trail. That means what happens is it gives complete data, who was used, when he has used, whether he is present that day, login, there is access control, whether the login ID is there, password is there, and the rights are there. One is the read level, one is the adjustable level, then the administrative level, where he can change. All these things controls are improved. And these are the things by me constant monitoring and updating and improvement. And also, it's not only the regulators keep a track, but the manufacturer should also upgrade himself. There is a change in the rule or regulations. Suppose earlier that means only the rider has to have a helmet. But if the pillion rider has to also have a helmet, see, usually whenever the regulation changes, they give a grace period. That means they give 6 months, 1 year grace period, where they say that you have to adhere to this content within this period. So if you don't follow that, subsequently what happens is you will be caught and you will be fined. So this is, you should have a component regulation. That is where the regulatory department is there, who constantly watch if there is any change in the regulation, the practices what we are following, and immediately they inform to the quality assurance. They will ensure that regulations are updated. Okay. And they also demonstrate and document the compliance status and performance to regulatory authorities and inspectors. See, whatever we call it as an online documentation. That means whenever you do, you have to complete the document, whether it's electronic or manual. You can't do it after it. We call it a contemporary. Alcoa principle is there. So whatever attributable, legible, all these things come into trustee, truth, all these things come into picture, because what happens is you have to do the activity at the correct time. That means whatever you do, if you go and find one document, it should be traceable to its raw data, it should be traceable which equipment we have used, it should be traceable to who has That is, all these things will come into activities. That's why they call it the integrated quality management system that covers all aspects of the product life cycle. That means right from the starting, from the receipt of raw material, sampling, then storage, then blending, everything till the then finished good storage, then distribution, all the product recalls, all the reference samples, to everything complete stability data. Every data should be properly documented and properly. So whenever the inspector comes, we will see what are the major documents we they see. So their focus will be on the quality management systems. So if the quality management system is appropriate, then what happens is it reduces their burden because already the system in place. They monitor and review and upgrade the system at each level. That way they ensure the quality is built into the product, not at the end. So that is what the objective of this. So what is meant by quality management system? So it is a set of policies, procedures, processes, and tools that ensure quality complete formula products or operations. That means we have a site master file, we have a guidelines, we have a SOPs, we have the quality procedures, we have templates. That means whatever we do, we have that. Suppose we do equipment maintenance, we have a document record where we enter all the details of equipment, when it was breakdown, what parts we have changed. All this event log will be done. So what happens is tomorrow you find a metal particles in your product. It is not a good GMP. That means it is harmful to the patient. Automatically, when you do the investigation, then what happens? You should be able to trace it where it would come. Suppose you have done some change or other, you check the punches, there is some breakage or something happened, then it is coming from the machine. Or because material of construction of the punches, equipment, it should be SS316. All these things come into picture. And also the qualification equipment, all these things, whether the operator is trained, whether the inspection, visual inspection is done, whether they during the visual, how it is missed, all this data, who has done the visual inspection, whether he has the training record, whether he is doing the inspection for so long, he is a new person, or he is experienced, all these things come into picture. And all these documents should be aligned with the regulatory requirements. That means the document policies are built from the regulatory. Suppose if you have the CEDESCO guidelines are there, Schedule M is there. So whatever document you make, if you want to comply to the Indian standards, you have to take it as a reference because guidelines is as a broad guidelines. But how you can implement it's defined in the quality management systems. And it should be continually reviewed and improved. If you see any document, if you see SOP, there is a review period. That means after 1 year, 2 years, based on the quality of the work, they will review the document. If there is a change in the process or a change in how we are handling, it should be changed. And it should be checked for the effectiveness and efficiency. So what is the purpose of this regulatory inspection? Now we have talked of regulations, how to control quality. Now we come to the inspection. So when you come to the inspection, so we should know what is the purpose of this regulatory inspection. So to ensure that the business company, the regulation standards set by the regulatory authority. So they will check whether they are against the regulations and standards. And develop and implement program of inspection to confirm compliance with regulatory requirements and any conditions specified in the authorization. See, what the companies do is they have a self-inspection program. So what happens is once in a quarterly, once in 6 months, as per the defined, the quality assurance team, along with the technical team, there is a cross-function. They form a team and they go inspect the facilities. Whether they go and inspect the facilities as per the regulatory guidance. That means they see whether there is any deviation, whether deviation is raised, whether if the corrective action is in place, then preventive action is there, whether it is effectiveness is there, the calibration of the instrument is proper, or the batch record, analytical method validation, all data is proper. All these things they will check whether validation is done properly, audit trials of the equipment. So these are the things which they will do as a self-inspection. And also they to safeguard the public health by reducing the risk of adulterated, misbranded drugs reaching the market. As I told, there are a lot of adulterated. Adulterated means they mix the other drugs in the drug. Suppose you have a paracetamol, they may mix some other drug which is placebo, right? Let's say placebo, which has no impact. So it has the same color. Suppose you take the coffee powder. You can mix the what you call tamarind seeds powder, you can mix. Nobody will know because the color is same. Unless you test and check the purity, you don't know. Misbranded drugs. Misbranded means suppose somebody manufactures drug at an inferior quality, they may put my label and sell it. So because I know this brand is good, I buy that one, but I don't get the intended effect because the drug is of an inferior quality. And to increase the communication between the industry and FDA. So what happens is it always says that it's not only FDA also get to know how the industry is. See, FDA, what happens is today we have Agilent HPLC, but tomorrow there is a new brand which comes, like Waters HPLC or Shimaji HPLC. So how do you know what is the development of the, how to do the, see, manufacturing is there, FBD is there, tableting is there. There are so many manufacturers. So which equipment to use, which equipment is compatible, how is the control, means electronic control, everything. So FDA also, there should be a communication with industry and FDA. So FDA should also have some knowledge on these things. And to provide timely input to firms during the inspection to improve the firm's compliance with current good manufacturing practice requirements. So what I mean to say is this is also what happens when we will come to the inspection. That is why the even the local stethoscope FDA, if they have given approval for some of the, they come once in a year for inspections. They will inspect and see whether whatever they whether they have the required structure, facilities, everything to do the intended product. Suppose I am doing oncology drug. That means very potent drug. Then I should have isolated to do the activities, HEPA filters and other things. So if I don't have the facility, I am doing in a normal manufacturing. One thing is it is harmful for others who are working. It is also harmful for the people who, because there is a contamination, there is a, see, it is like a protection for the patient to the product, for the people for the product, and product from the people. So all these things they will have to check during the inspection. That's why having inspection, people see it's a threat, but it helps us to continuously improve our systems. So as I told, there are three types of inspection which they do. One is a pre-approval inspection. Very familiar, they call it a PI inspection, PI they call it. And routine surveillance inspection. That means the pre-inspection is the first inspection. Suppose you are submitting your application for the first time to NDA or whatever, ANDA to US FDA. If the facility has not been audited earlier, then they will come for a pre-approval inspection, which is, it is a complete inspection. That means they do A to Z. They check all the facilities, they check the process, they check the documentation, they check the people, everything they will do. When a routine surveillance means post-approval, what happens is today I registered one product, next year I file another product. Because already they have inspected, they may not come for the facility inspections. They will check on the data, based on the data, they can give the approval. But what happens is after inspection, every 2 years, 3 years, they will come for a routine surveillance inspection. That means whatever is 2 years back. Suppose we have a house. So today I buy the house. The house is brand new. After 2 years, what happens? There is a wear and tear of the paints, doors, everything. Automatically, what I have to do? I have to do the painting once in a while for the festival or for marriage or something. Then what happens? I will be able to maintain the dignity or the decency or the quality of the house. Similarly, here also they will check whatever they have given approval 2 years back, whether the facility is in the similar condition or the facility conditions is improved. All these things will come. And compliance, one of which is for cost. That means compliance means during when they submit the dossier and they found that there is some adverse reactions or there is some data integrity. Data integrity is they are manipulating your data and other things. So all these things, if they get, then they will come for a compliance audit. That means they manipulated some data and the data has been submitted as a dossier. So they have a challenge for the data. That means what do you want to? They want to inspect whether they have done it properly. If already they know that there is some malpractice, they will come and check to prove that the malpractice is intentional or unintentional. That means it is done by mistake or it is done purposefully. So that is what is called a compliance audit. So as I told, the pre-approval inspection as a part of a new drug before it is approved for commercial sale is done. If an active formulation or experiment made by a facility other than the manufacturer of the drug product, these may also be inspected. That means, as I told, suppose the source of my product, that means either it's API or excipient, then what happens? Then there is maybe an inspection because there is a change in the process. Then you apply for a super, as I told, scale up and optimization approval, or it can be variation. Or if major is observed during the pre-approval inspection, a follow-up inspection may be required before drug approval to review corrective action implementation system. We'll come to that one. See, about the para 483, everything, I think by the end of the lecture, I will be able to explain to you. So that is where when there is any observations, usually if it is not critical, they will give the compliance part, they will approve it. But if it is very critical, they will come back and inspect again to ensure that this is rectified properly. So routine surveillance conducted after a drug product is approved are intended to conduct every 2 years. As I told, every 2 years they come to ensure that it is sustained, the conditions and everything sustained. The FDA is a risk management approach to assess which product poses a high risk and a result require more frequent oversight. That means if the process of the product is critical, that means it's highly risk. That means if it is a highly potent compound, as I told, oncology product, which exposure or the quantity will have an impact on the person who is manufacturing or the patients. Maybe their frequency can be less than 2 years also. The firm is going to be a high risk if the company has a history of GMP compliance issues or closer to the end of processing of a drug product, or issues have occurred with similar categories of product. For example, means either there is a non-compliance with your drug product or non-compliance with the API manufacturer. That means you buy the drug from somebody, and if the manufacturer has some compliance issues, automatically the firm, then the company is considered a high risk, and probably they will come for a inspection. So the compliance inspection, as I told, is conducted to examine the effective corrective action it will find due to the corrective action. See, as I told, we call it a CAPA, that is corrective action and preventive action. What happens is when the corrective action, by definition, it means that if there is a problem, there is a leak, I will arrest the leak. That is a corrective action. That means I am temporarily corrective action. The preventive action, how do you ensure that the leak doesn't happen for the second? That is what the preventive action. So what people do is once you do the corrective action and preventive action, people observe for 6 months or 1 year to see whether whatever the corrective action and preventive action have taken is effective or not. That means the action doesn't repeat. If it continuously repeats, then it becomes a critical. If I may refer to the forecast inspection when an issue has occurred, as I told, some contamination, adverse reaction, a lack of drug effectiveness due to a counterfeit drug, all these things come. That means it's not able to, it is not efficient. So suppose my purity should be, you know, the purity should be 98% is my specification. But if the drug content is less, what happens? It doesn't do the activity what is intended to do. So all these things will cause a cause of compensation. So when inspection, see, that is about the inspection. So when do we do the inspection? The firm is admitted application of submission as the main supplier, alternate supplier of material, product or services. What happens is, suppose I am approved facilities, but tomorrow I am buying a API from a company who is not approved. Then what happens is they will come and inspect the people who are doing the API. I will give an example. See, in one of the previous company where we are doing only the stability studies in India, rest of the activities are done elsewhere. Because the stability is also critical, the USFDA came for inspection of this site to ensure that this part of the facilities also have the same standards of the other activities carried on the elsewhere. So that is what it means, identify application. That is meant by main supplier, alternate supplier, whatever is there. The firm has had a violent inspection history under problem. That means there is a lot of non-compliance and other things. That's where they want to come conduct. The firm has prioritized using a tiered approach based on factors such as the risk, volume of products, or complexity of the products. That means sometimes it's very like COVID. What happens in COVID for the drug is vaccine is very important. So they can't wait for 10 years. So they will give on priority, they will come and they will do the inspection. And there are 5-6 products which I applied. That means 5-6 applications are applied from the same facility. Then what happens is because there are a group of products, they may come and do it. Another is the adverse reaction involving recall. That means there is a missing tablet or there is a product quality is a problem. All these things will come in. So what are the approach for inspection? So first thing is they will do the evaluation system in place. Okay. And in the RNA may inspect GMP facilities. So that also they may not, they do a sample inspection. That means it's difficult to check everything. So they will have specific and the effectiveness of the system implement. So critical process they will check. So and also they will check whether the system evidence of implement covered in sufficient detail so that FDA can determine whether the system in a state of control. That means, as I told, there are in-process controls, everything on the process to ensure the quality is built in all steps. So when they say that FDA inspection, as I told, they divide into 6 categories. One is the quality, facilities and equipment, materials, production, packaging, labeling, and laboratory controls. So these are the 6 focus areas where they will do it. So when you do a full inspection, they will do a minimum of 4 systems. One of is critical. That means out of 6, at least they will do the 4 systems for a complete inspection. So now coming to the techniques. One is the comprehensive inspection. That is the complete inspection. That means they go into broad, complete evaluation of the firm's GMP. So usually it is done for the compliance status. That means sometimes you have to determine the compliance. There are some challenges, or for the initial FDA. So as I told, if the were submitted dossier for the first time, then what happens, because the facility has not been seen by the FDA, they may complete for the complete inspection. So next time within 2 years, if I submit another dossier, they may not come for the inspection because already they have the necessary infrastructure and facility which they have inspected. The only they check the documentation part, dossier part, and if there are some queries, they will ask. Another is often FDA can conduct a directed inspection or abbreviated inspection on a efficient update on the firm's GMP compliance. So it covers every area to depth necessary to address the purpose of inspection. Minimum of 2 systems, one of which must be the quality. So see, as you can see, the complete inspection requires a 4, but when you go abbreviated, they will go only for the inspection where they find they will find is a risk. So subsequent abbreviated inspection is system ability to rotate so that all 6 systems are appropriately addressed. So depth of coverage, it depends on the finding. Suppose there is a data integrity issue in some of the instruments, then the depth of input will focus on those. Now we will come to the audit. Now we have completed the this one preparation or the requirement. Now we go to the. So what are the things which we do during that? I told that when the FDA inspection office, when they come here, they inspection the FDA inspection displays credentials, gives document inspection on form FDA notice of inspection to the top management official at the business. So form FDA 482 is the they got a form 482. So it is a notice of inspection because we should have evidence that those people are come for an inspection. The FDA usually is present during an opening meeting with the inspection team and company management. So we will see who are the people who are presented there. All these things we'll see. So inspection can be done by one investigator. Sometimes what happens is he may bring some experts because he may be a lead inspector, but he may not have knowledge in certain areas like facilities or the analytical equipment, everything. So he may bring some experts. He may call some expert locally also. Okay. So it consists of common observation process and the facility review of procedures, records, interviews with the employees, and the task they perform. So they may have individual employees interviews also. Suppose they are going for one product. I know this Excel handles the analytical. So I will have a discussion with him. I want to understand whether he has complete knowledge of the instrument, complete knowledge of the process, how we have developed a method, and all these things will come into picture. So how does it start? Inspection will walk through the facility while it is in operation, and they take notes during the part of the inspection, and then they will also make note of the people who they have met, and daily they will have a debriefing. That means at the end of the day, they will just give some brief. Suppose they have gone through the workings, so they find some findings. They will ask for some documents. So they give that these are the areas we observed, these are the observations. Can you get me? These are the supporting documents. So we keep ready the document the next day. So obviously the next day they will see the documents in support of what they have observed. So what happens is after that, at the close of the inspection, they give FDA 483 inspection of them, usually a closing meeting with the company management. So what happens is just like who are the people who are present in the opening meeting, usually they are present in the end of the meeting also. Usually the presence of the senior management and the people who are involved in the QA, regulatory affairs, plus the people who are direct interaction with the auditors like the facility. There are always a team who interacts with the facilities. So if there is no other, say FDA was even only if there is a requirement for the deficiency related to requirement of GMP. If there are no observation, no FDA is issued. So if there is no FDA 483, then shows our systems are perfect. Sometimes what happens, even the 483 or that this can be minor or major or critical. If it is critical, it's serious. Major means somewhat serious, and minor means it's just a gap in the system. So FDA receipt for samples, samples are taken during this. See, FDA 484. So what happens? I collect some samples. So for testing, suppose I have some doubt on the product, so I will collect samples. That will then form FDA 484. Whatever they have taken, they give a form 484 where they mention what are the samples they have taken. So this may be taken as a enforcement action. Suppose I find that some contamination, some problem. So they may collect, even I don't know, the people from the local status, they come, they collect some samples, send it for the testing labs, whether for the potency and other things. After the close of the inspection, the FDA is obligated to complete an establishment inspection, EAR we call it, establishment inspection report, Once the inspection is concluded, the EIR is available. It is typically forwarded to the company for inclusion in the inspection. That means EIR gives a statement that they have been inspected and everything is under control. If 483 is there, then you have to do the corrective prevent action, then they will issue the EIR. What are the senior managers? See, it's not that only the people, the senior manager also should get involved. So they should develop and document implement procedures for managing inspection by regulatory authorities in order to protect legal rights of the business and doesn't maintain professional relationship with the regulator and conducting the inspection. That means unless you have guidance, documentation, everything, then there is no process how you meet the regulatory code. That is what it means by that. So senior management at site or function must be present during the key parts of an inspection. Sometimes what happens is the person who is handling, he may say that I didn't get this instrument because management does not approve this one. Then what happens? Senior management must be in a position why we have not given that instrument, why it is not done, or there is a commitment that they will do. All these things the senior management should answer this one. Inspection notification, ongoing highlights of the inspection, and findings of an inspection must be communicated to relevant senior management in a timely manner. See, end of the day, you know that even though the QA or are responsible for the compliance, but the owner, the senior manager, who is the site head, or who is he is overall responsible for any complaint, non-compliance of the site. So all the inspection details, everything should be debriefed daily, and also at the end of the day, they should be handed over to senior management, the inspection. So there should be a, usually the companies will have a SOP, inspection SOP, where it describes the action responsible associated with an inspection. That means usually what they say is who will be the person who will first answer the question. If it's not answerable, who is the expert? There is a subject matter experts are there. People who have done the experiment are there. There are QA people regular. So there are different people whose roles and responsibilities are defined and how to present themselves in the inspection. And also address the local legal requirement for taking photograph. See, it is a legal. See, the facility is mine. So I have the. You see that when you go to a temple, they say that no to photography. So the temple has the right to say that you can't do photography. So if there are some restriction there, we have to take a consent from the inspection authority saying that if you want to take the photograph, you have to consent from that it will be kept confidentiality and you have to use it only for their purpose. Okay. Personal data, as you know, data privacy is the rule. They should take the consent and then give all the details. And if you are seeing, listening, or reading, or signing up by the company personnel, all these things they should take a consent and do it. Even the review of internal audit reports and access to the computer with all these things, they have to take a consent. An accurate detailed record is meant for events, significant comments are recommended from the inspectors. Documents are reviewed and copied of the inspection. Suppose if the inspector wants some SOP copies. So you know the QA system, what happens is we have the master copy, then we have a control copy, when we have an uncontrolled copy. When you say control copy, it is for Indian purpose within the company. So they will put a control stamp, QA issues the control. When it's an uncontrolled copy, means it is given to the outsiders like the inspectors, auditors, because they want for the reference purpose. In such case, we say it is an uncontrolled copy. And also, local will ensure that any inspection are clearly understood, that any factual are brought to the attention of the inspector, that there is a clear understanding what will be addressed by the site in written communication to us. This is what means by the action items. Sometimes what happens is the inspector may see certain things and they will give the observation previous day. So before the conclusion of the report, if you are able to justify or if you are able to show the document which is not there during the observation, then they may cut that observation. That means they may remove the observation from the report. So now we just go to the who are the people who will be there in the preliminary meeting. So what they will be, usually there is a regulatory affairs, human resources will be there. You may ask why human resources there, because the people attendance, whether they are present or not, the access control, all these things will be maintained by the human resources, personal data, all these things will be done in the human customer service. Suppose if there are some requirement is there, that means they want some IT support, everything, they will be there. Service and repair, warehouse, service and repair is the maintenance and operation team, warehouse, finance, sales and marketing. Because finance people are required because they are mainly maintain the agreements, rate contracts, other things, or AMC, CM. Suppose you are using some instrument, you go for the annual maintenance contract or a comprehensive maintenance contract, and during that period, whether the contract is how much we are paying. All these things finance will be able to do, and sales and marketing people, because the marketing people usually they will have the agreement with the different companies. Suppose you are buying some API or something from other, then purchase department, sales people, all these people will be involved. So the following information shall be provided the preliminary meeting requested. Company organization structure. That means they should know the organization structure. That means what are the different departments? You know that QA and production can't report. QA can't report to the production because it's a conflict of interest. So obviously, what happens? The production team report directly to the managing director. Similarly, a QA team also reports. All these things is visible in the organization. If there is any deviation, because there is a compromise. That is what there is. Site layouts. That means they should have complete layout of where is the warehouse, where is the manufacturing, where is the QC, what is the sizes, what are the, all these things. Site activities means what are the activities you are carrying out. Normal working hours of the work. That means if you have shift system, who is coming when, who is going, all these things. And also following shall be agreed during the meeting. That means they say that what is the scope of this audit, what is the duration, timing of the inspection. All these things will be discussed. And also there's a standard regulation which they will be assessed to be compliant. That means they will tell that we are following as per 20. Suppose if person comes from FDA, he will do only the 25th year. If a person comes from UK, he will do EMEA guidelines. So that would give, and key personnel required to be available. That means if they want to interview any QA person or a person, they will give the list. They should be available for interview. Schedule for inspection daily and final review meetings. Sometimes what happens is they may give an agenda. That means tomorrow I will go to facilities, I will go to QC, I will go to QA. I want to see all these documents, everything. They will ask a list of SOPs, list of documents, and they will pick up some documents. So previous day we have to give the document copies. They will go review, and tomorrow, next day they will call the concerned person. They will discuss with them. They will have an interview. Everything they will do it. So what are the kind of, what are you have to do during the restaurant shall ensure the inspection occurring during the walkthrough of the well. That means never you should leave the inspector alone. You should identify the team. Suppose he is going for an engineering department. It always ensures there is a QA person is there is a one more senior person is there, then the engineering head, who is the responsible person should be there to answer all the questions. The operator is there if there is any questions about the operation. Act as a primary source of information. That means whoever goes with him, he should have knowledge about any questions the inspector will ask and that premises. So when appropriate questions are directed to the designate, sometimes what happens, I go, he may have some, you may requirement of some quality control. So I may not be expert in the quality control. So what happens, I can always tell that I will call the subject matter expert. And if he needs some document, I can always ask people to bring the document for discussions. Keep a list of samples and copies all given and mark it confidentially if appropriate. That means you have to have an inventory. As I told, you should make a list of documents or samples which is taken by the inspector and get it signed. You have to take a sign from the inspector saying that I have taken all these samples. Usually they say that they give a FDA 484 where they give what are the samples they have taken. Keynotes of any normal observation identify the inspector and begin correcting immediately where appropriate with the relevant department. Suppose there is a small correction, some leakage is there somewhere. The inspector observes. So it is easy to observe. So what we do, you take this observation, then you involve the right person to ensure the leakage is arrested. So these are the things which you should be ready to do it. So these are the values and behavior. They should be very courteous and cooperate. Then you should clearly understand and know attempt to anticipate questions. That means you shouldn't do any guesswork. See, audit inspection, the success comes when you can't lie. You should speak the truth. If you don't know, you can tell them, I don't know, I will call the right person, and don't bluff. If you bluff, then you will be caught. And answer the question be asked, not voluntary. That means if you ask something, you talk about that one only. If you ask one product, if you talk of another product, then the inspector may ask questions which you are not prepared. And not let the browse through files, only present the requested document. Usually what happens, you may have a big file where you have different documents. So inspector asks only one spec. If you take the entire bundle of documents, because you are not prepared for that one, what happens, he may find some observation. So always give the document before giving. There should be a person who checks the document thoroughly for compliance, everything, and then hand over to the auditor. Suppose if you find there is some gaps, then what he calls the subject matter experts. So he will tell that I found this gap in the document. So be prepared to answer to the auditor. Then what happens is when you prepare yourself, go when auditor asks also, you are already ready with the answer. So it gives a positive impact. That means auditor feels positive. These people know the problem and they are prepared for the problem. See, because Nobody can be perfect. Answer question cannot, when answer is unknown, this should be made clear. As I told, don't bluff. Maintain record of all the observation, comment, request for sample, is already we discussed. So daily review meeting. As I told, daily review, what are happening? At the end of each day, a review meeting may be held involving inspector and key personnel. And they may ask to detail any apparent non-conformance observed during the day. And this will be reviewed and opportunity taken to correct any misunderstanding. One thing is, you will be given an opportunity whether the understanding of the inspector is correct. If it is not correct, we have to explain to them. Or there is an opportunity we have to do it correct before the inspection is completed. So the auditor is convinced and this point can be removed from the report. The final inspection report. So what happens is, once it is done, it is the same person's appropriate person. They will ask to detail any apparent non-conformance observed during the inspection. The inspection will be reviewed and opportunity taken to correct any mismatch. The same thing. The respondent must decide whether to give a verbal response either immediately or after retiring to the concerned matter. Reserve the position until review of the inspection written report. Okay. There is always option either answer immediately, or what happens is during the inspection they may have observation. When you go back and discuss, sometimes what is observation may become a recommendation. What I mean to say is, when you say recommendation means already we are following the complaint, but there is a chance for improvement. Then they say recommendation. This is the way, there is a better way of doing. That is what I mean by this one. Deviation from every may occur during regulation as required by the regular body and top management. So there is always a deviation. Sometimes what we think and what happens are always different. But it's better not to argue. We take it and then we ask them time. If possible, we do the correction before they leave, or we have to wait for the written report. Then we do a corrective action. So closing of inspection, only the final report is received from restaurant auditor. Site quality authority shall provide a written response addressing all findings with an action plan, time frame, and responsibility for action. The response to final inspection shall be approved by the responsible person. So whoever is responsible for that can take the ownership. He should be approved. The final inspection report shall be sent to the responsible auditor within the time frame provided in the panel. That means they give a time. Suppose they take 30 days to give the report, they will give 30 days for doing the actions. Once we give, see how it works is, there is the inspector who provide all the data. This data will be, inspection will be submitted to, there is another committee will be sitting there. So they review all this data. Sometimes they may ask additional documents. Sometimes they feel it's not required. Some of the observations go, or some of the observations which are minor may become major. Some of the major may become critical. As finding the address, corrective action are implemented, effective action are verified. These shall be designated contact responsible for the inspection. So once they agree on the corrective action, they will communicate to them. The inspection will not be closed until all findings are addressed, corrective actions are implemented, and action closed out by the regulator. That means once everything, see, there is observation, we have to do the corrective action, and once it is completed, then you get the EAR report. Thank you. I think that's all I have. So if there are any questions, I'm ready to take it. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your nice presentation, sir. Thank you for delivering the informative session on drug development, sir, and commercialization of the formulations. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, please stay on the line for 2 more minutes, sir. Just for
Yes, sure.
documentation, we are taking some screenshots.
Okay.
Slides present, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for your contribution to make this RA Bridge course successful, sir. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Thank you all.
Dear students, afternoon at 2 p.m. second session is going to be started. So join at 1:55 p.m. without fail. Leave the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.